Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into Aphra Behn's The Amorous Prince. We've got excerpts from the play itself and some interesting academic commentary about it, so we're going to unpack all that. Get ready for love, betrayal, mistaken identities, all happening in the Florentine court.
The thing that really struck me about this play is how Aphra Behn, as one of the first English women to actually make a living as a playwright, tackles these themes head on with such a sharp and insightful perspective.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you can really feel that wit and intelligence, especially in how she puts the whole plot together, how she builds the characters. But okay, so before we get too ahead of ourselves,
Right.
let's lay it all out. We've got this tangled web of relationships.
Yeah.
And right in the middle of it all, a love triangle.
Absolutely. So we've got Frederick, the amorous prince, right? He's charming, but he's also super fickle. He's the heir to the Duke of Florence, and he's already involved with Chloris. He seduced her, promised her marriage, but then he falls for someone else. Her name is Laura.
Okay, see, this is where it gets really interesting for me. So not only is Laura the woman that Frederick's friend Curtius is in love with,
Right.
but Chloris is actually Curtius's sister.
Exactly.
So he's going after both sisters completely clueless.
It's a recipe for disaster. And poor Curtius, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's caught between his friend, his sister, both wronged by Frederick. It's awful.
So this is where the disguises come into play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have Chloris dressed up as a young man, Philibert. She becomes Frederick's servant. She sees his infidelity firsthand. And I don't know, to me, that's such a powerful image. Like, she's taking control.
Oh, absolutely. It's more than just a plot device. It's like she's defying these power structures that made her vulnerable in the first place. It's like she's taking back her power, exposing the hypocrisy of it all.
It's brilliant.
It is.
Okay, and then we have Ismena, a friend of another woman in this mess, Clarina. And Mina disguises herself, too, to manipulate a whole situation with Clarina's jealous husband, Antonio.
Oh, Antonio. He's convinced Clarina's cheating on him, so he asks his friend Alberto to woo her. Puts Alberto in a really tough spot, you know?
That's weird.
Yeah. But this whole episode, even though it's played for laughs, it really reflects some anxiety, some real anxieties of that time about women, about fidelity, about trust. Can you trust anyone?
Right. Yeah, it seems like a lot of the humor in The Amorous Prince comes from these situations that are just uncomfortable, like everybody's tiptoeing around social expectations.
Exactly. Ben is using comedy to explore some serious societal issues, and she's so witty about it.
So smart.
Sharp.
And, okay, anxiety's right. Let's not forget Curtius.
Yeah.
The guy's in love with Laura, but his best friend is the one pursuing her.
And to make matters even worse, Frederick gets Laura's brother Lorenzo to help him court her. He has no idea about the betrayal. It's dramatic irony at its finest. It shows how complicated friendship, love, loyalty, all that can be in this court setting.
It seems like everyone's just being pulled in different directions by what they want, by what they're supposed to do, by what other people think.
Yes. And that tension just drives the whole play. It's why we care about these characters, you know? Even when they're making choices that seem kind of, well, questionable. Remember, this world, appearances are everything. And social status, that's a weapon and a trap.
Yeah, it's like a chess game, but the stakes are sky high.
Exactly. And as the play goes on, we see just how far these characters are willing to go, you know, to protect themselves, their reputations, their hearts.
So, okay, we've got love triangles, disguises, and a whole lot of social tension simmering.
Yeah.
But before we really unpack the individual characters and why they do what they do, let's talk about when Aphra Behn was writing this.
Okay.
What was going on?
So, The Amorous Prince was written during the Restoration period in England, a time of huge social and political change. The monarchy was back, but the country was still dealing with the aftermath of the Civil War, you know, the execution of Charles I.
Right.
People were divided, and there was this anxiety about the court, about the king's power, about the role of women. All of that was front and center in everyone's minds.
So is it fair to say that Behn's using this play set in Italy to kind of comment on what was happening in England at the time?
I think that's a really smart observation.
Okay.
By setting it in Italy, this place known for all its intrigue and love affairs, Behn could explore things that might have been too risky to talk about directly in England.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to English society, but doing it in a way that she can't get in trouble for it.
Exactly. She critiques the hypocrisy, the double standards, but it's still entertaining. It makes you think.
And she pulls it off.
She does.
Okay, but I want to go back to something you said earlier about Behn being a woman, one of the first English women to make a living writing plays. Do you think being a woman, that changed how she wrote about love, betrayal, power.
That's such a good question. I think it's essential to understanding this play, really. Ben, as a woman trying to make it in a man's world, would have had such a different view than men writing plays at that time.
Right.
She would have known firsthand the limits placed on women, the double standards, how their lives were controlled by men's whims.
So she's writing from experience then, bringing this depth to her characters that maybe a man wouldn't have.
Exactly. That's what makes The Amorous Prince so interesting, I think. It's not just a funny comedy, it's also a really thoughtful look at relationships, power dynamics, and how to navigate a world where love and social rules clash all the time.
It's like even in a lighthearted comedy, there are these deep truths about what it means to be human.
Absolutely. And Ben, with her sharp wit, her keen observations, she guides us through this world. She makes us laugh, makes us think, and ultimately she makes us question everything we thought we knew about love, power, and all the games people play.
Well, she's certainly given us a lot to think about.
She has.
Stay tuned, listeners, because next we're diving into the heart of the Amorous Prince. We're going to uncover all the hidden depths of this comedy. It's going to be good.
Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit, shall we? Let's look at how these characters we've talked about navigate this whole mess of relationships and social rules.
Yeah, good idea.
Frederick, our amorous prince, he's fascinating. I think Ben really uses him to show how male power and privilege work, you know?
He's charming, right.
Oh, yeah.
But he's also reckless.
Yes, exactly. There's this sense of entitlement, and it ends up causing a lot of pain. He really embodies that anxiety about male power we were talking about. He uses his position, his charm, to seduce women, makes promises he doesn't mean.
He's after both Cloris and Laura, without even knowing they're sisters. I mean, come on, that says a lot about him, doesn't it?
Oh, totally. He's so focused on what he wants, he can't see the damage he's doing. And it brings us back to Cloris and how much she changes.
Yeah, at first she seems kind of naive, right? Seduced by Frederick, heartbroken by him. But then she takes charge.
That's the turning point, I think. When she decides to disguise herself as Philibert, it lets her see Frederick for who he really is, but it also gives her kind of power she wouldn't have had otherwise.
It's also like she's stepping out of what society says a woman should be. She's taking on a more, I don't know, masculine role.
Yes, exactly. Using her wit, her smarts to manipulate things.
It's brilliant.
It subverts all those expectations. She's resilient, resourceful, and Ben doesn't make her bitter or vengeful, you know?
She's not, yeah.
Even after everything, she chooses forgiveness. I love that about her.
Me too. There's this generosity about her that's really, well, compelling.
It shows that Ben really understood people. We're capable of great love and great stupidity, right? And she lets her characters make mistakes, learn, grow.
Speaking of complex characters, what about Ismena? She's something else. That scheme she cooks up to expose her husband's jealousy is so intricate.
Ben loved creating these strong, witty women who challenge the rules. Ismena, she's a master manipulator, disguise, trickery. She uses it all to show how ridiculous Antonio is being.
It's amazing.
And it's not just for laughs, right? It's Ben making a bigger point about trust, jealousy, how men and women relate in this society.
Like she's saying, if women are constantly being judged and suspected, well, sometimes they have to fight back in unconventional ways.
Exactly.
Cloris and Ismena, they're not just reacting to men, they're shaping their own destinies.
That's key. Ben is showcasing women's intelligence, their resourcefulness, their ability to survive in a patriarchal world and come out on top.
And when?
And that brings us to Laura. Now, she seems more passive at first, right?
Yeah.
Caught between these men who want her. But even though she might look like a damsel in distress, there's strength there.
She's not scheming or wearing disguises.
No.
But she loves Courteous, and she sticks with that, even when her father and society are pushing her in another direction.
That unwavering love, it's crucial to how things work out. It's like Ben is saying, true love can conquer anything, even in this crazy, unpredictable world.
Love that.
Okay, but resolutions, right? Let's talk about the men for a minute. They're not all bad guys, are they?
No, definitely not. I mean, Alberto, he's caught in the middle of Antonio's plan to test Clarina. Poor guy. He's torn, right?
Oh, yeah.
His loyalty to his friend, his feelings for Clarina, the morality of it all. It's tough.
He shows how complex male friendship can be. Honor and loyalty are tested all the time by what society expects and what these men actually want.
And then there's Courteous, betrayed by his best friend, by the woman he loves. But even then, he chooses to forgive.
He's the embodiment of compassion, of understanding. He represents redemption, Like, even after betrayal, we can heal, we can forgive.
It's so heartwarming. And Ben doesn't shy away from showing how men feel things deeply.
Not at all. These men, just like the women, they're complicated, driven by all sorts of things. Noble things, selfish things, things that just make no sense.
Human things.
Yes. And that's what makes The Amorous Prince so much more than just a funny play. Ben looks at the gray areas of human nature, and that's what makes it so real.
It's like even in a comedy, there are these profound truths about what it means to be alive.
Absolutely. Ben, with her wit, her insight, she makes us laugh, she makes us think, and she makes us question everything we thought we knew about love, power, and the way people treat each other.
Yeah, she does.
It's brilliant.
So we've talked about the relationships, the social pressure, all that's happening in The Amorous Prince. But how does Ben wrap it all up? Because the ending, it's full of surprises.
It really is. And the impressive thing is how she manages to tie up all the loose ends, but in a way that's satisfying, And it makes you think. All those different plots, the love triangles, the disguises, those near disasters, they all come together.
It all works out.
It does. And it leaves you with, well, a lot to ponder.
Let's start with Chloris. Still dressed up as Philibert, she's been taking care of Frederick, who's totally smitten with him.
Right, and doesn't realize it's Chloris.
He has no clue.
It's brilliant. Dramatic irony at its best. The audience knows the truth, the characters are clueless, and the tension just builds and builds.
Until boom.
Yeah.
Chloris reveals who she is right when Frederick's about to declare his undying love for Philibert. Talk about a well-timed twist.
It's classic comedy, but Ben uses it to say something deeper about forgiveness, second chances. Frederick, he suffered. He seems genuinely sorry. He gets a chance to redeem himself.
And Chloris, after all that, she forgives him. It's a powerful moment. Shows how love can change people, how we can reconcile even after betrayal. But what I find really interesting is how Ben uses this to comment on what society expected.
Yes. Frederick accepting Chloris as his wife after all that's happened, it challenges those social norms. It suggests that true love, it doesn't care about reputation or social standing.
Which, for a playwright back then, especially a woman, it's a bold statement. Shows Ben wasn't afraid to challenge the way things were, even in a comedy.
Absolutely. But, okay, let's not forget about the other characters. What about Laura? Remember, her dad was forcing her to marry someone she didn't love?
Oh, yeah. Poor Laura. But she gets her happy ending, too.
She does, and it comes from a rather surprising place.
Okay, who?
The Duke. Frederick's father steps in. He basically says Laura's marrying Curtius, the man she actually loves. He sees how unfair it all is and uses his power to make things right.
That's awesome.
Right, it's justice. It reinforces this idea that people in power, they should use it for good to fix what's wrong. But Ben doesn't stop there. What about Antonio and Clarina? The couple dealing with all that jealousy and mistrust.
Right. So after seeing Ismina's crazy scheme, what happens?
Antonio finally gets it. He realizes he messed up. He begs Clarina to forgive him, and, well, they embrace. Full of trust again.
It's like even our biggest flaws, we can overcome them if we're willing to change, to be self-aware.
Exactly, and it speaks to the power of forgiveness in relationships, which is a theme throughout the whole play.
But you said earlier that Ben doesn't give everyone a perfect ending.
Right. Most of the characters find happiness, but there's Alberto. He's heartbroken because Clarina rejected him.
Oh, poor Alberto.
He decides to leave the court, goes off to war. Kind of a sad note, in an otherwise happy ending.
It's like a reminder that not all wounds heal quickly. That unrequited love, sometimes it leads to bad choices. It's a good contrast to all the reconciliation, I think. Shows that even in a comedy, there's space for sadness, for the complexities of heartbreak.
It is. Life isn't always black and white, right? Even in the funniest stories, there are shades of gray, there's sadness.
Well said.
So we've really explored a lot in The Amorous Prince, the characters, the plot, the social commentary, and how Ben brings it all to a close.
We really have. And Ben does all of this while still entertaining us. It's such a fun play to read. It's really a testament to her skill, how she blends complex themes, interesting characters, into a story that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
She does.
Yeah, she really does.
She was a genius.
She was.
Ahead of her time.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. If love is a game, like Ben seems to suggest, who makes the rules? What happens when we play by those rules, or when we break them? Think about it.
Great questions.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, keep diving deep into those big ideas.
Until next time.
See you then.